This is the Songwriter Connection, the award-winning elite music podcast of the year, connecting the songs and the people who write them. Welcome, songwriters, friends of the song, and fans of great music. Pull up a chair around the dining room table. From his home in Nashville, Tennessee, here's your host, songwriter and storyteller, Dave Linehan.
We are so happy to have Michael Peterson with us on the phone. And Michael, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you for making time to give us a call here on Songwriter Connection.
Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate the work you're doing to shine the light on songwriters and for your audience, who are, I'm sure many of them are songwriters as well.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into the craft in a little bit. We just celebrated, by the way, this is, if you're listening on the day that this is published, it's July the 8th. And we just finished celebrating the 250th anniversary of our great country here in the United States. And I didn't think that there was a better guest I could have to talk a little bit about that than Michael Peterson, who does a lot with veterans and with the USO. So, Michael, it's just good to have you and to make a connection with you again.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
You know, we go back a ways. You won't remember, but the first time we met, I was working for B105 Radio in Cincinnati, and you came, and this was 97, you came and did our Chili Fest. And
I remember the Chili Fest. I loved that. It was great.
Wasn't that fun? I still have a T-shirt for that. You were the headliner. There was Chili, right?
Well, you know, one of the main reasons I remember that show is it rained like crazy, and when I hit the stage, I got that mixed up with another show.
Yeah.
When I ran up the stage ramp to go on to stage, my heel caught the front of the ramp, and I fell, and it busted the whole complete tail end out of my guitar.
Oh no!
I remember that. I remember that show very well because I love that guitar.
What a horror story.
It was gone, you know.
Oh, no.
But, anyway, so I remember that show, but it was a fun day, you know.
Now, the next time I met you, I was working with Sharp Objects here in Nashville, and you came and you talked.
Steve Sharp.
Steve Sharp, loved that guy. And you came and you talked to us, and it was just absolutely amazing, the advice you gave, the time you spent with us, and what a public speaker. I mean, you had us all, you know, at times in tears with your story and all the encouragement you were giving us. It was just fantastic.
Well, thank you. And you mentioned Steve Sharp, and I'm looking at a picture of him here on my wall. He's a dear friend, and
love that.
God rest his soul.
God rest his soul. Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing I wanted to mention with you, and you might not remember this, but when my wife and I, Patty, were getting ready to move to Nashville, we were coming in quite a bit, looking at areas, you know, in places that we wanted to live. And it was in November, and I remember there was a songwriter show that night at Dan McGinnis Pub, which used to be the Irish pub just before you enter Music Row. And there was a great songwriter night that night, and lots of great songs. We were sitting there and just enjoying ourselves, one great song after another. Bobby Pinson, who's one of my other favorite songwriters, takes the stage, and he sees that you are sitting in the back, just kind of minding your own business, enjoying the show like we are. And he goes, Michael Peterson is here. Let's hear for Michael. And he says, you got to get up here and sing a song. And you're like, really, this is not my spotlight, guys. You guys, you go ahead.
Yeah.
And he insisted you get up there. And what you did was the most classiest thing I think I've ever seen in the music business. You took his guitar, you sat down, and you played one of my all-time favorite Bobby Pinson songs, the Fort Fairlane song. And I thought, wow, who does
love that song.
Remember that? Incredible.
Yeah, man. And I do remember that because I love Bobby Pinson. And
I do too.
And I thought it would be fun to get up. If he gets me up to sing a song, it'd be fun to do one of his songs, you know?
Yeah, it was so cool. Yeah, absolutely. It blew us away. Yeah, always loved that song. And that makes me... Michael, I always got the feeling that it was never about you. The whole career, everything you've done, it just seems like you've given so much to other people, and evidence for that, all the USO shows and what you're doing with veterans right now, you found a whole new purpose, haven't you?
Well, you know, it's an interesting observation that you made, and it's the kind of thing that you can't necessarily make about yourself without it sounding like you're puffing yourself up.
Yeah.
So I don't often get a chance to talk about sort of my thought process behind that, but since you brought it up, I have always had a sense that the moments with an audience are more fulfilling for everyone when they're a dialogue and not a monologue.
Yep.
You know, and it's a shared experience, because I really do think on some level And it's not that there's anything wrong with other people choosing to do it their way. But I always thought on some level that the audience isn't coming to hear songs about my life. They're coming to hear songs about their life.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, and so I've always tried to take that approach. Like, how can we create what I like to call the great exchange? Like this great moment that happens when you're with a group of people where you feel like it's a spontaneous thing and not just some artist playing a set list.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
if I want to hear a set list, I can stay home and listen to YouTube or Spotify or something.
Spotify playlist, right? Yeah.
People come to be entertained.
Yes, they do.
And I think the greatest entertainment is when people start to feel like, is he talking about me?
Yeah. And that's the magic of songs.
That's my thought process behind that. So
if you write them well enough, people will get, well, I'm hearing myself in that song. Or
that's what you hope for.
Yeah, which is really cool. And you've always had that gift. And as a songwriter, you had a lot. What people realize that you were a songwriter before you were ever signed to a big record deal or anything. You had songs from Travis Tritt and a wide variety of genres too. Denise Williams, Timothy B. Schmidt of the Eagles. You were always a songwriter at heart, weren't you?
I was. In fact, my first cuts as a writer professionally on a level that was above sort of a regional level were pop and R&B cuts for Denise Williams. She cut 4 of my tunes.
Did she really?
Yeah, I actually had the follow-up single to you remember the big hit "Let's Hear It for the Boy"?
Oh yeah, what can you forget?
Okay, so I had the follow-up single to
Did
that.
you really?
It was a song called "He Loves Me, He Loves Me Not" that I co-wrote with Denise.
How about that? That's
I was writing pop and R&B, and a buddy of mine who was a famous gospel music singer. Some of your listeners might remember an incredible artist named Roby Duke. And Roby came up to me one day as a friend of mine in Seattle, and he said, "Hey, look at you wearing your cowboy hat, your cowboy boots." He says, "How come you're writing all those R&B songs?" He says, "You need to go to Nashville." So,
and that's how you ended up here. Wow.
Yeah, I just thought, and at the same time, that the time that was all happening, grunge music had really come to dominate the charts. So the music that I grew up loving and listening to were the singer-songwriters. Everyone from Don McLean to James Taylor and, Gordon Lightfoot and Jim Croce. But those artists weren't being played on the radio anymore. And the only place I could find anything on the radio that sounded remotely like that was country. So it just seemed like a good fit for me because I think at heart, those are the artists who inspired me the most. Neil Diamond, James Taylor, Dan Fogelberg. I mean, golly, a handful of these great singer-songwriter artists. And I think at heart, that's probably closest to who I really am as a singer-songwriter. Good
point. And you came to Nashville right at the right time. I mean, it was exploding. I remember working in the 90s country radio, and the story I always say is even us jocks were rock stars at the time.
Everybody, the rising tide floats all boats, right?
Right. Yeah, I always loved that saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Along comes Michael Peterson, sleeveless with big guns, and everybody fell in love with you. And great songs like, From Here to Eternity, which was it's still the wedding song, I think. And then Drink, Swear, Steal and Lie, great song.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw you on a YouTube video recently doing the song about Made the Bartender Cry. And I thought,
yeah. You're in trouble when the bartender cries.
Oh, you're in trouble, right? Wow. Great stuff. Great songs.
Thanks.
One of the things you told us at that meeting at Sharp Objects that you brought to my attention that I never really knew, songwriter song. One of my favorite songs by Bread was I'd Give Everything I Owned. And I always equated that to a girl, and you told us, no, that was written for his dad. And never could hear that song again, the same way again. And recently I've lost my father back in May, and that song just to this day, it just tears me apart. Is that one of the songs you wish you would have written, Michael?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think anybody who's ever written a song wishes they had written that song or a song like I Can't Make You Love Me. I mean, I've often said to people, I'd trade every song in my catalog to have written I Can't Make You Love Me. What a great song.
Oh, what a great song. Yeah. Mike Reed, right? Used to play...
Mike Reed and Alan Shamblin.
Alan Shamblin, that's right, who also did House That Built Me with Tom Douglas. Yeah. Great song. Great songwriter. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for the first time on StarVista, you're releasing 2 records that have never been released digitally before. Now they're out there and available. They are Down to the Farm and the Veterans one.
Yeah, when I stepped away from the spotlight probably around 2005 or 6.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people assumed that I just had quit the music business, but I didn't. I just, long story for another day, but I just stepped out of the spotlight and, but continued to tour and to make records. And over the course of the last 21 years at this point, I made 10 albums.
Wow.
And the only place that people could get those albums were on my table at my shows. Wow. And when I connected with StarVista here recently, and we began to talk about what we might do together, I said to them, I have a lot of music recordings that the world has never heard before, except for the people who happen to come to my shows. and so as we began to dig through that, they picked 3 albums. Wow. 2 of them are the albums that you just mentioned, and then there's a third one that will be coming out in August with the first single. And the album will come out in February, but from August through until the end of January, they're going to release a single a month off of an album that I made called In Black.
Okay.
So these are 3 albums that, if you love 90s country,
I do.
If you love that vibe, these are 3 albums that were created not yesterday, but if you've never heard the music before, then of course it's new to you. And as you listen to these records, you the one thing about records is, if the production parameters are robust, then the records never get wrinkled. Yeah. They never sound old.
That's true.
So to any of your listeners who are saying, well, are they new records or they're not? Well, to you, they're new. Yeah. And they're music that people have largely never heard before. So we're really excited to have them available for the first time. Yeah. Really commercially. They were never available commercially before now.
And Michael, 90s country has never been bigger than it is right now. I mean, it's the hot thing here in town, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All these tribute bands are coming up playing all the 90s stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember when I had my very first record deal. I had a gospel record deal in 1985, maybe. And I signed this deal with a major gospel label named Sparrow Records. And I remember thinking to myself one day when I was in the record store and there was a cutout bin. Of course, people don't buy vinyl so much anymore, but they would have albums in the cutout bin. And you knew they were in the cutout bin because they would always have a little hole punched in the corner of the album.
That's my favorite place to shop in a vinyl store.
Right. And I remember thinking to myself, if I ever get in the cutout bin, I'll know I really made it. So after all these years, just to have the music around, it still people still care about it.
Oh yeah.
So I don't feel like I'm in the cutout bin yet.
Nope.
Because people, gee whiz, Drinks for a Steal and Lie last year had a ton of spins and streams. Yeah. And Drinks for and From Here to Eternity did too. So these songs are still vibrant and alive.
Really
and 90s country is something that young people now are saying, hey, that's my parents' music. But now they're listening to it and they're digging it. So, that's the power about music. It crystally crosses cultures and genres and boundaries and really even generations,
It really does. And songs have a life of their own. They just keep on going, touching different people, different hearts, so fantastic. I want to focus in on the first one, Down the Farm. You had a song, and I wanted to, before I do that, I wanted to ask you about your work with the veterans, which has been very rewarding for you too. You're writing with some of these veterans. They tell you the stories. Is that true?
Well, I have written with a number of veterans. There are some groups out there, organizations that do that. That's their sole focus. Mm-hmm. And I've participated in a couple of those, and they've become very therapeutic. Probably my most active involvement with the arts and veterans was for 14 years. I was the national spokesperson and the official MC for a yearly event called the National Veterans Creative Arts Festival, which was a Veterans Administration or VA hospital program nationwide that was involved about 180 to 200, depending on the year, individual VA hospitals. And each of these VA hospitals would have an arts therapy program. And people that were in the arts therapy program were using art as part of their healing process. And pieces of those art were submitted to a local contest, which then the winners were picked and went to a regional, And then those winners were picked and went to a national platform where the VA awarded every year roughly 120 gold medals to veteran artists who created art. And if you have 120 categories, you can imagine it's as wide as you could. Like, you could randomly pick any kind of part of the arts, and you'd say, yeah, that was a category. So one of those categories was songs. And I just had the privilege over 14 years of being their national spokesperson and being their official MC for a program every year that was filmed for PBS. And that was probably my most active involvement with veterans in arts therapy.
But you also did a lot of USO tours. In fact, you won a Bob Hope Award, right, for the shows you put on.
Yeah, well, I in that, what people generally call a USO tour, that's kind of become a sort of like when people say, I want a Coke. Like, if you're in Atlanta and people say, do you want a Coke? And then they say yes, and then somebody says, what kind of Coke? And they say, well, make it a Sprite.
I'm an orange Coke.
Make it a root beer.
Yeah, root beer Coke. Yeah, there you go.
So USO tours, I think people generally think of as anybody that goes over and sings for the troops. But there's actually a number of different organizations. There's an organization called MWR, which is Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, which is an Army program. And it kind of acts like the USO to bring talent over. There's a couple of other organizations like that. So over the years, I did one USO tour with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which was, that was an incredible opportunity. I flew on Air Force 2.
Wow.
We did 11 countries in 7 days, and it was Kuwait and Qatar and UAE and Bahrain and Iran, Iraq and Afghanistan and Djibouti, Africa. And
Djibouti.
I mean, I'm probably forgetting a few, but that was a one-time trip I did on the chairman's holiday Christmas tour. But then on the heels of that, flying home from that tour, I was having the opportunity to speak with the chairman, General Peter Pace, at that point, which, by the way, was the first Marine Corps officer to ever be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and just a remarkable guy. And we were talking, and I said to him, because we had pretty good crowds wherever we went, because you're traveling with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So I said to him on the way home, what about the men and women who are in the places that are too small so they never get shows? And he said, well, he was sad about it, but he said they just don't get shows. And I said, well, if you ever want to send somebody to those people, send somebody to do those shows that are, way out in the middle of nowhere where they never get anything. I'd be interested in doing that.
That's awesome.
So about 6 months later, he called me and he said, hey, did you mean that? And I said, yeah. And off I went. So for the next, 7, 8, 9 years, I guess, I did 11 tours. And the tours weren't fancy. I'd get over there and I'd be there for sometimes 3 weeks. And every day I'd show up at the landing pad, and they'd pick me up in a Black Hawk helicopter, and I'd have my PA in a golf bag and my guitar in my hands, and we'd fly to a forward operating base. Sometimes there might be 5 or 6 people at the show. Sometimes there might be 500. But it was very dynamic, and it was very you realize in pretty short order that you're really not there because of who you are.
Yeah.
You're there because of who they are. And that maybe sounds like a cliche, but I could probably sum it up best by telling you something a service member said to me after a show that we did in Djibouti, Africa, in the Marine Corps restaurant there. He said to me, listen, I don't know your music. Because at that time, he was 18, 19 years old, and my hits had been a while before. He said, but I want to tell you something. He said, you could have pretty much stood up there and peeled a banana, and I would have been glad you're here. And I said to him, why would you say that? And he said, well, it's just nice to have a touch from home.
Wow. Isn't that great?
And so it was life-changing for me. I realized that my job was to try to make them laugh and lower their shoulders and forget about anything that they're worried about for a while.
Well, it's like I said before, it seems like it's never been about you. It's about everybody around you. And that's great. Well, that's just a great story. Thanks for sharing that. I want to touch on this song that I think could have fit really well on the Veterans song album, but this one was on Down on the Farm, the Warriors anthem song, which is just so powerful. Can you tell us the story behind that, and then I'll play it?
Absolutely. So when I first started working with the military, the person that I worked with was a female colonel by the name of Jill Chambers. And she was the director of, promotions and kind of communicating the Army message. She was, I remember now the title. She was the director of strategic communications for the Department of the Army.
Wow.
So she was the person that was really leading the efforts to try to communicate to the public what the Army's message was to the public.
Gotcha.
So she said one day to me, she said, do you want to go over to Walter Reed Hospital?
Oh, wow.
Let's go over there and let's visit some service members over there that have been wounded. And I said, oh, yeah, of course. So as we came through the guard gate, she rolled down her window, and the guard that was standing there, was checking our IDs. And then she asked him a question. And the question was, can you please recite for me your Army creed? And the reason why she asked him that, of course, I didn't know it at the time, was that they had created, as part of, helping to give a handle for the service members themselves to identify clearly what it is they believe and what they stand for. Sort of like the Apostles' Creed. The church way back in the day said, hey, what do we believe? Yeah. Let's put it in writing.
Gotcha.
So the Army had done that with the soldiers' values, and they called it the Soldiers' Creed. Mm-hmm. And she asked him, because this is what a lot of the communications officers were doing at the time, trying to encourage service members to learn it. So he stumbled, and he wasn't able to do it. And so and she didn't, he didn't get in trouble. There was no problem with it, but she just encouraged him to go learn it. So as we were driving away from the guard gate and up towards the hospital, I said to her, it would be a lot easier to remember if it had music.
Oh.
I said, who would remember the words to the national anthem if it wasn't the music?
That's true.
And
right.
she looked at me and she said, do you think you could do that? And I said, oh, yeah, of course we could. So the Army hired me, and I called up one of my closest songwriter buddies and producers, Josh Leo.
Okay.
And I said, Josh, let's write the music to this text that they call the Soldier's Creed, or the Warrior's Anthem is what it became.
Wow.
And years after that song was written and recorded, I was just tickled and delighted to hear that there were several basic training graduation ceremonies that were including that song in their graduation ceremonies when soldiers were graduating from basic training. So it's just one of those songs. It's really the Soldier's Creed put to music. It's called the Warrior's Anthem, and it is a timeless orchestral piece of music. I mean, it's really beautiful and powerful.
It really is. And I'm going to spin it right now here on Songwriter Connection with our guest, Michael Peterson.
I'm a soldier and a warrior and a member of a team. I serve the people of this land I love, home of the brave and free. I will live the Army values, ever faithful I will be. I will always place the mission first and never accept defeat. I'll never quit, never leave one fallen comrade, disciplined physically and mentally. I stand always maintaining my arms, my equipment, myself. I'm an expert and professional time to engage and destroy the enemies of freedom. I'm liberty's champion. I'm a soldier. I am an American.
You're listening to the Songwriter Connection with Dave Linehan. Find us on Facebook and YouTube at the Songwriter Connection Podcast. And find Dave at thedaveconnection.com. Now back to the show with your host, Dave Linehan.
All right, we're back with Michael Peterson on the Songwriter Connection podcast. Kind of a special one today, and it's so good to have Michael. I want to, before we continue, I want to remind you that we publish every Wednesday morning here in the United States, 2 o'clock Central Time, so you can get up and have a cup of coffee and make a new connection. If you're listening on YouTube, smash that like and the subscribe. We certainly appreciate it. And if you could tell just one person, you might just know one person really into the craft of songwriting, really loves music, and say, hey, listen, check this guy out. Check out Songwriter Connection. We certainly appreciate it. We are worldwide, approaching 5 million streams, and we're really glad you found us today. So Michael Peterson is our guest, and boy, we just played that amazing song, the Warriors anthem, and I hadn't heard that story before, and now it even touches me more, something else. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Michael, as a songwriter, let me ask you, how has your process changed over the years? You've been writing a long time, so
yeah.
You
know what? I think I'm 150 years old, so I think I've been writing for.
You are not.
Well, so when I was living in Seattle, before I ever got to Nashville, I was rabidly focused on writing.
Yeah.
And I decided early in my journey, probably 1985, that I would read everything I could get my hands on, listen to everything I could listen to, go to every writer's mic night I could go to in Seattle. I would busk down in Pioneer Square. I was just eat up with it, and I decided along the way that it would be good if I had some goals. So I started to write songs, and I thought, my goal is to write 20 songs a year.
Wow.
I thought if I could do that, and it didn't matter to me. Like, I wasn't thinking, are these great? Are these not great? I just was coming from the heart without a lot of self-editing.
Yeah.
And I just wrote. And everything I wrote didn't turn into a song, but I managed, I think, on average to end up writing about 15 songs a year.
Wow.
And, for a good long while.
Yeah.
The only people that liked those songs were my friends, and they had to, or the beer stayed in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, and then when I got to Nashville, Nashville's a co-writing town.
It is. Yeah.
So many people co-write, and I hadn't really co-written much. So, let's see, I was 90 from 96 to 2012, I lived in Nashville. So,
you wrote a lot of songs at those times.
Yeah. But during that time, I would bet I only wrote a handful of songs by myself. It was mostly co-writes.
Great. Yeah.
So then I moved away from.
Yeah.
Well, when I moved away from Nashville in 2012, I've been in Las Vegas since then. When I got to Las Vegas, and I didn't have that robust culture of co-writing around me. Mm-hmm. Over the first couple of years, I began to find myself drifting back towards writing by myself.
Okay.
And what I discovered was a bunch of things. Number one, I discovered that when I wrote by myself, I wrote differently.
How so?
And, well, nobody likes to talk about this, but anybody who's ever been in one of these rooms will tell you it's the absolute truth. So you show up at a co-writing session and you have what you think is a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, but the thing is that most of the time the person coming to write with you, they're hearing it for the first time.
Yeah.
And if it's an idea that runs deep in you, and it's not just a hook, but it's something you really wanted to say. Well, I didn't realize that's when I was in the middle of it, but now looking back, I can see it. That other person couldn't possibly care as passionately about that as me.
Yeah. Never thought of it that way.
And there's kind of a subtle pressure, like we are here to manufacture and create songs. And our goal is to try to finish a song today.
Oh, yeah.
And if we don't finish it today, well, we'll finish it the next time.
Right.
And what happens is sometimes that goal supersedes the goal of writing the great song.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And so sometimes a great idea, in fact, far too often, a great idea ends up becoming an average song. Because, and I discovered this by when I got to Vegas and I started writing by myself again, I started going through my old songs. And I found a bunch of songs that really fit what I just described to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I dedicated myself over the last 13 years of being here to taking those songs that I thought had been great ideas but had turned into average songs, into just diving into them and trying to make them what they could really fully be. And so a number of those songs have now been rewritten, and I still give credit to my co-writer. But, the tell is that I never heard again from any of those co-writers who said to me, hey, you know what? I think we missed it on that song. I think we could make it better.
Wow.
And so my takeaway is this. If you're listening, to those of you who are listening and you're a songwriter, if you have an idea you're super passionate about, don't let it go just because you punched the clock and said the day's done. Let's go have a pizza.
Interesting.
Because if there was a great interview I read with Stanley Kubrick. It was in Spin magazine years ago, and they asked him, the great director Stanley Kubrick, they asked him when he was done with a film, how did he know that he had succeeded with what he set out to do?
Yeah.
And he said something I'll never forget. He said, I know I've hit the mark when the movie is finished if it makes me feel the same way I did when I first had the idea.
Wow. That is a good point. You're right. That's
right.
Yeah.
So when you finish that song, if you leave feeling like, well, listen to that.
Yeah.
It's something inside of you that's like, and it's not your co-writer's fault, and it's not your fault.
No.
It's the fact that often when you have something you deeply care about, what you even feel about it or where the song should go isn't clear. And it takes time.
It does.
And generally speaking, those kinds of deep songs that mean something to you aren't found by two people staring at each other in a room wondering when it's lunchtime.
Co-staring, right? Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So I just think that's one thing that I've learned. And so, being in Vegas, I just thought, you know what? I write differently when I write by myself. I don't feel under any pressure to meet a deadline. I'm really there to serve that song. And so it's been great. And then the other thing that I observed, I think, coming full circle, was coming back to co-writing, was that my years in Nashville were my apprenticeship.
Really? Okay.
And if I can say this without sounding like I'm boasting, I don't mean it in a boastful way at all, but I recognize that I'm not an apprentice songwriter anymore. I'm a journeyman.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from great writers like Dwayne Blackwell and Robert Ellis Orrell.
Oh yeah.
And John Bettis, and just these writers that were such incredible writers, and they poured into me. And Gene Pastilli, Scott English. I mean, these guys poured their lives into me. Michael Purrier. These guys, they taught me. And they poured into me, and I'm better for it. And I wouldn't be as experienced as I was if they hadn't mentored me and taught me and helped me and grow. I grew together. And so I'm a better writer at this age, but I rediscovered that those skills I learned are now making my solo writes better than my solo writes were before I had those tools. So it's all part of the journey, and it's all valuable. But those are some ways that I've changed.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing those stories. I do want to pull out the next song from the Veterans album. And this is one that you it's one that's co-writes. And tell me you didn't learn something in the same room as as Whisperin' Bill Anderson, who's had hits in, 6 different decades? Maybe 7 now? I don't know.
Well, first of all, Bill Anderson and I have written together before, and I learned a lot from being with Bill.
Yeah.
The most thing I learned about Bill is what a gentleman he is.
Yes.
And with all of his creds and all of his, accolades, he could be on a high horse somewhere. But Bill is a gentleman. The other thing I want to really make clear is that I didn't co-write that song. That song was written by Bill Anderson and Walt Aldridge, the late Walt Aldridge, by the way.
You did not write this song. My bad.
No, I did not. It was written by the late Walt Aldridge and Bill Anderson.
Okay.
And it's an incredible song I wish I'd written, but it is based on a true story from a guy that Bill went to church with, who shared his testimony one day. He was a World War II veteran, and there was his story about, his journey. Really, I don't want to spoiler alert for anybody. When you hear the song, what you're hearing is a literal true story of a man's journey from World War II to the World War II memorial.
It really is. It's a great song. I just forgot, or maybe I didn't know that you didn't write it, and I do apologize for that. But it's still a great song.
No problem. I wish I could put my name on it, but those guys brought it home, man.
I think I just did. We're going to start that rumor. No, listen. And in choosing that, it had to hit you, and you had to think, well, I'm going to record that because it had to be touching you, right?
Well, yeah, I figure it this way. If it really moves me, it's likely to move other people.
Exactly. It moved me. Here it is, Old Army Hat, Michael Peterson, the Songwriter Connection.
Well, he came home to Tennessee, young man at the end of 45. Only one of 7 men in his platoon who made it back alive. And he must have seen some tough things, but he never said too much about all that. He put his memories and his medals in the cedar chest, everything but his old army hat. By the time that I was born, the winds of change had swept across our land. Folks are burning flags and draft cards when they bothered to take some kind of stand. And we used to laugh at Grandpa like he was some old relic from the past, 'cause he never left the house unless he was wearing that funny-looking, worn-out army hat. Every eye was on him anytime that he went anywhere. Well, they whispered and they pointed, but you could tell my grandpa didn't care. I ain't wearing this for them, he'd say. No, it's a whole lot more than that. My buddies who gave everything, the least that I can do is keep on wearing this old army. Well, he called me up one morning, said he heard it on the news on his TV. He said they'd opened up a monument to World War II in Washington, D.C. I ain't getting any younger. I wish someone would take me to see that. And I couldn't help but think, what if they laugh at you up there if you show up in that silly army hat? Well, 2 strangers both saluted as my grandpa walked up to the monument. One said, "Thank you, soldier, for a job well done." The other said, "Amen." Just then a young boy said, "Sir, my daddy went to war, didn't make it back. Do you think that you and I could take a picture? Yeah, and maybe I could wear your army hat." Oh, every eye was on them. There was not a dry one in the crowd. They all but Grandpa stood up extra tall and proud. And he whispered, son, just keep it, when the young boy tried his best to give it back. Said, you're a brave little soldier, never sold your needs, his very own authentic army hat. For your daddy who gave everything, the least that I could do is pass on this proud treasure, army hat. Marine Corps hat, Navy hat, Air Force hat, Coast Guard hat, this old army hat.
Old Army Hat, not written but performed by Michael Peterson, who's with us on the Songwriter Connection today. Michael, again, it's good to have you from Las Vegas on the phone with us, and appreciate your time. Really do. Yep.
Thank you.
There's so much I'd really love to ask you. There really is, because success not only as an artist but as a songwriter as well. Still continuing to write songs, and you rolled up your sleeves. You went to work every day here in Nashville when you were here, and you really honed the craft. And I enjoyed hearing the stories that you told on how it's changed you as a songwriter. How about advice for writers just coming up? Now, we've had a lot of folks that love the craft and are learning. What would you tell them?
Well, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. I would share two pieces of advice.
Okay.
One came from a Hall of Fame songwriter, Dwayne Blackwell, who wrote, among other things, "Friends in Low Places" and "Mr. Blue" and "I'm Going to Hire a Wino to Decorate Our Home." And,
great songs.
I mean, a lot of big hits. And then the other was a piece of advice from my grandmother. So, Dwayne Blackwell said to me one day, he said, "You know what the secret is to becoming a superstar?"
Huh.
Of course, I leaned in, kind of half expecting him to give me a joke or something, And he said, the secret is to write and or sing songs that make you an immediate spokesperson for millions of people.
Wow. Look at that. Wow. And you've kind of done that. You have done that.
Well, it's one of the best. Well, it's a filter that you can use. When you sit down to write a song, you say, you ask yourself this question: who does this make? Whoever sings this song, who will they be a spokesperson for? And then I have a second piece to that, and it's something that I think I made up, but I might have heard somebody else say it, but I think I made this up. And that is your title T-shirt worthy?
Love it. I love it. Yes.
Would you ever see this title on a bumper sticker or a coffee mug or a T-shirt? Because if not, it's okay to go ahead and write the song, but there's a reason why people put stuff on their T-shirt.
That's right.
It's because it's connected to the first question, which is, does it make you a spokesperson for millions of people?
That's fantastic. That's a good piece of advice. And your grandma.
The piece of advice came from my grandma. So I'm 30 years old. I live in Seattle. I tell my grandma I want to go to Nashville. I want to make it in the music business. And she says to me, do you think you'll make it? Of course, when she asked me that, I was kind of hoping she'd give me some encouragement instead of asking me the obvious elephant in the room question, because I didn't quite know how to answer it. And I stood there kind of with my mouth hanging open, and she leaned across the kitchen counter with a cup of coffee in her hand, and she said, well, let me ask you another question. She said, if it takes you 10 years of struggling, and rejection, and discouragement, if it takes you 10 years of facing all of that to make it, how old will you be in 10 years if you never try?
Oh, wow. Pretty powerful. Smart lady, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, it sort of sideways advice. Like, what she was really saying was, you got to go try if that's what you want, because otherwise you spend the rest of your life
regretting.
And be like the farmer who always said, I always wanted to be a ballerina. Whatever. I mean, you just spend the rest of your life, saying, I don't know who said it, but it's a great quote that says, very few people get to the end of their life and regret what they did.
Yeah.
Most people get to the end of their life and regret what they didn't.
Yep, it's so true. Well, that should be on a T-shirt too, right there. Let me tell you. That should be written. Well,
so those were two good pieces of advice that I got. Like, so go if they like you, go if they don't. Go if they pay you, go if they don't. Just go do your thing.
Do what you're passionate about.
And let the path open in front of you.
Yeah, very good. Great advice. Thank you. Well, I want to spin one more record from the new song from the record, and this one I chose. I think you did co-write this one.
I did.
You Could Hear a Pin Drop. Yeah, tell us about that. Yeah.
I wrote it about my grandfather, my dad's father. Fought in World War I. I mean, it was very different back then. He was 18 years old and he went off to Europe, and it wasn't like, hey, got leave. No, when you went, you went. You went,
yeah.
Until you came home. So he got wounded and was in Europe for 2 years.
Wow.
And he didn't talk much about it, But last Christmas before he passed, he started talking about it. And it was really, even though the song is about a World War II veteran, really my inspiration for that was my grandpa Chet. And he was a quiet man and didn't talk about stuff much. And of course, like many men of his generation, they didn't talk about the war at all,
No.
So it's when somebody like that finally speaks, the room goes silent,
Yeah.
So it's about that.
Great. Well, let's hear it. I'm going to spin it for you.
It features the lead singer from Chicago, Jason Sheff.
How about that?
Who's doing a cameo on it with me as well.
That's great. Well, here it is on Songwriter Connection. You Can Hear a Pin Drop. Michael Peterson.
Granddaddy never talked about his great adventure. That was one memory that he never mentioned, the settling of the score and the boys of 44. His last Christmas we were all surprised to hear him say, why would God give me a mind that works this way? I can't remember what happened last week, but when I close my eyes, I can still see me holding my buddy with a bullet in his heart. And when Granddad said he died there in my arms, you could hear a pin drop. It felt like every heart stopped. Nothing but the winds of time were blowing. When it hit you with a hard truth, what others have done for you. Oh, the whole world stands so still for a moment. You could hear a pin drop. Now every Veterans Day when they wave Old Glory, I remember what I learned from hearing Granddad's story. True patriots hate war. In fact, no one hates it more. There was a ceremony showing on the evening news. At the end of the parade and color guard salutes, taps was played after the last note passed away. The crowd stood silent, and they all bowed their heads. As the living sent their prayers out to the dead, you could hear a pin drop. It felt like every heart stopped. Nothing but the winds of time were blowing. When it hit you with a hard truth, what others have done for you. Oh, the whole
Great song, Michael Peterson. You can hear a pin drop. All of these songs that we played today are now available through StarVista. Thank goodness for those guys. Now available digitally. And one more coming out in the fall, did you say? Yeah.
Yeah, and you can find them on any streaming platform, Spotify, whatever you use, Pandora that you listen to, YouTube. You just look up these albums. You can find them anywhere. And then the third album, the first single from that will come out in August.
And you're going to do one a month, did you say? You're going to do it?
Yeah, they're going to release, StarVista is going to release one song a month, and then the full album will be released in February.
Fantastic. Can they follow you anywhere on the socials and pre-save these?
Yes, you can.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on Facebook. I have a fan page there, and they call it a personal page, but
yeah.
I have 2 pages on Facebook, and you can find me, of course, at my website, which is michaelpetersonmusic.com.
Awesome. Very good. Michael, continued success. Thank you for all the hard work you're doing and for taking on these causes and making them yours. And because you are doing exactly what you preach, and I'm so proud to know you. Thank you.
Well, Dave, thank you for all you're doing to raise up artists and to encourage writers. Without guys like you, I might have never gotten to Nashville. So thank you.
You're very welcome, my friend. Thank you for calling.
Okay, bye.
That's a wrap from the dining room table. Thanks for joining the conversation and chasing the music with us. From Nashville, Tennessee, this is the Songwriter Connection, the award-winning elite music podcast of the year, connecting the songs and the people who write them.